one question I had for you, Levi, is, as we kind of move towards like hunting specific and tactics, one, I'd love to hear your story here and kind of how you were able to find your bear and ultimately, seal the deal.
Yeah. Well, I drew the tag at the end of June, beginning of July last year, and was totally surprised because that was, again, my annual contribution. I never planned on anything, got that letter, and I was like, oh yeah, I applied for this. That's awesome. And then, I really got to looking at what's my actual opportunity here. What does it take to get a bear in Missouri, and started trying to look that up. There's just nothing out there. It's a new enough season in general, and there's not a lot of resources on Missouri bear hunting. So that's one of the reasons I found the Bear Foundation, was just like, found some post or something on Facebook that was like, oh, there's something, and went there and like, oh, here's some people talking about bears. It's pretty tough to find. So I Googled everything I could, even looked at areas like how to spot and stalk public land bears in anywhere that was topographically similar to the Ozarks. I was even trying to look at that. Like, let me look at the Smokies. Let me look at, how do people do this? And then it was just boots on the ground. Everything I read and watched and listened to was saying, you're going to have to cover a lot of miles. So I started, I started going down in July. Every time I had a day and a half break in my schedule, I'd get down there and hike for a day or half a day, spend the night, and do it again the next morning, and then get back out of there. I did that a total of 10 nights, doing that between July and the season. And then during bear season, I had, my Onyx was the Unit 1 in Missouri, just speckled with dots, where I had hiked a lot and tried to find bear scat everywhere, and scratches and anything I could mark, which was, again, like, I'm a turkey hunter and a deer hunter. And at first I started walking around and was, seeing turkey sign, deer sign, turkey sign, deer sign, and just everywhere that I see, because my eyes are trained to do it. And like Roger said, just learning how to bear hunt, my eyes were not tuned into that. It took a while of training for what to look for and how to look for it. And it's kind of like, you start driving a Tacoma and then you see Tacomas everywhere. You start looking at whatever, that phenomenon that happened. It clicked at some point where I started walking and I was like, bear sign. Okay, now I see what it is. I was blind to it before that. So that was a big piece of it. Is just training my brain and eyes how to see bear sign. Then during season, it was, I had 2 4-night stints that I could be out in national forest. And I was going to do those. I was actually going to do 10 in a row, and there was a really rainy couple of days that was kind of pointless to be there. So I split it up. The very first opening day of bear season was one of my very best friend's weddings, and I was the best man in it. And I said, man, I told my wife, I was like, he has a higher statistical likelihood of getting married again than I do of drawing this tag again. So I stuck it out and went to the wedding, but I was thinking about bears the whole time, and got immediately out into the Ozarks. And all of the sign that I had marked in my Onyx from, July through September looked the exact same. The scat that I saw was just older scat. The scratches that I saw were just more faded. Like, everything that I had marked was not fresh sign. It was fresh when I found it, and then no bear had been back by. So that let me know I'm in the areas where bears will be, but they're just not in the spots that I had marked. And I felt like I was, I don't know, following them a month behind schedule. It was crazy. And then I found a guy named Austin Ball, who's a taxidermist in Cassville. He had a YouTube short of himself doing some bear scouting that I came across. And I just messaged him on YouTube and was like, hey, I'm also bear scouting right now. Like, I'm out here getting after it. Where are you at? Have you seen anything? And he was like, yeah, I see there's bear sign all over. I have bears on camera. I have bears. Like, oh, sweet. And he was like, hey, there's more ground than I can cover if you want to come hunt out here. And so, I mean, that was super generous. So I took him up on it, drove out there, and hunted in his area for a while. And we just, had a bear camp, which was cool to say, and then split up and went opposite directions during the day. I hunted with him a few days, didn't find anything. And then like you, I had cameras out all over Mark Twain. And so I was like, well, my last day's tomorrow. I better drive and get my last camera back out of the woods. So I drove back over to where I had started the season, and I was staring at my phone. It was the last evening that I could hunt, and then I had a little bit of time in the morning, and that was it for me. And there was one area I had not revisited since season, but it was because the only thing I found was a scratch mark on a tree. It was by a little pond that I thought would be a good spot for a wallow, and it was by a few-year-old clear cut that I thought would be a good spot for them digging around, getting bugs and stuff. So I thought, well, maybe I'll just go check out that area. And I drove up. It was, I don't know, 3:30 p.m., something like that. A storm was coming in. It was going to be there right around the same time as dark. The temperature was dropping, and I thought, all right, I don't have long before this season's over. But I pulled up, and somebody was getting in their truck. And again, this is late October. So I said, were you deer hunting in there? And he goes, no, I was actually looking for a buddy's deer who'd shot one yesterday, and they hadn't found it yet. And I was like, oh, okay. And he said, are you getting after deer? I said, no, I'm trying to find some bears. And he just goes, what does that mean? And he goes, well, there's bears in there. And I was like, well, I have a spot marked. And I pulled up my Onyx, and I said, I marked a scratch here. I said, do you know, like, where are you talking about? And he was like, no, like over that hill, I saw bears. And I was like, I said, you saw bears, plural? He goes, yeah. And I said, oh, that's probably a sow and 2 cubs. Like, that's not huntable. I said, but that's super cool that you saw him. I hadn't seen a bear yet. So I was like, well, I'll just go in there anyway. And I walked the direction he pointed, and within 50 yards of the truck, saw the sow and 2 cubs.
Oh, wow.
And it was awesome. I just heard a big commotion at first. It was one of the cubs like tearing through the underbrush, and they climbed up on a tree 4 or 5 feet high and looked back at me. And I was like, oh, there's the bear. And it jumped down, and they ran off and circled around downwind of me. And when they got downwind, they were probably, 75 yards away. They caught my wind, and they took off straight downwind of me. Kept running away. That was west then. And I texted my wife, and I was like, mission success. Like, I've been out here, slept 18 nights in the forest trying to find these things. And I saw a bear, saw a sow, 2 cubs. I feel like I can check the box. This was a huge success. Awesome season. And I had about an hour before that storm and dark came. So I decided they ran downwind of me. I just turned into the wind and started walking into the wind on about their elevation. And I saw more bear sign there than I saw anywhere else combined. I just figured it was the sow and 2 cubs that had, must den around there. But it was like bear scat, torn a plug, scratch up tree. It was just wallows, just so much sign. And I just kept walking, and within, I don't know, half an hour, maybe a little less than a mile, it wasn't too thick in there, I bent down and was taking a picture of bear scat on the ground. And I heard like a hoof, hoof, up, and I looked up, and there was a lone bear coming up the edge of this ridge, probably 100 yards from me, just walking straight up. So I slung my rifle off, and there was trees. I could see the bear moving behind it, and then a little gap, and then thick brush that the bear could be in until it was downwind of me. So I had a really short window. So within about 5 seconds of seeing it, had my rifle up, and then had about a 1 second shot window, and shot as fast. And just when I shot fast, I just instinctually put it right where you'd put it on a deer, just because that's where, like, fast shot, boom. And it felt too far forward for the bear. It knocked the bear over. I knew I made contact. It roared. It ran down the draw, and I could hear brush crunching and all sorts of noise. So I knew it was a wounded bear, at least. But I couldn't help shaking the feeling that I'd shot too far forward, and I didn't know, what that meant. I started hearing thunder Like the storm was here, dark was coming. I was like, okay. So I kind of went up the ridge a little bit to give it a little bit of time. And I got a 1 bar of service and called my wife, told her I shot a bear. And she's like, you got a bear? I said, I shot a bear. It doesn't mean I got a bear. So I was like, I hope I got a bear. I was like, love you. I'm going to go down in this draw with presumably a wounded bear and it's getting dark. See ya. She's like, all right. So I went down there and I found 1 spot of blood right where I shot it. Right where I hit it, like impact, and 0 other blood at all. But I watched it run down the straw, so I knew its exact path, and the leaves were all messed up, and I just followed exactly where it went till I got to the bottom. It really started getting dark then. I reached for my headlamp, which fell out of that unzipped pocket, and I was like, oh no. So I was in the bottom of this draw, wounded bear down here, dark was I was like, okay. So I just had my cell phone light. I was like, I gotta find this bear like now. So I just started like grid searching with my eyes, across everything. And I had walked about 15 or 20 yards past the bear. And I turned around and saw the bear at the same time it saw me. Its head lifted up. I had the same thing, just immediate boom, shot right away. And later, well, I can even show you. Later, I saw those 2 shots were about this far apart, and they were right in the vitals. It was both of them were fine and lethal shots, but I was just freaked out because it felt, too far forward like a deer shot. And the Austin Ball, that taxidermist out of Cassville, I texted him that I got one, and he texted he was on his way, and I was like, holy cow, that's awesome. So he drove hours in the storm to get to me, which was so nice. I had gone up and changed clothes and got rain gear on and stuff because it was downpouring then. He met me at my truck and we hiked out to it. I pulled the trigger at 4:30. By the time we had all the meat, the skin, the fat, everything packed up and packed out and loaded, it was 3 a.m. by the time we were done. It was a lot of work. But man, he saved me coming out and doing that. Like I owe him a lot for that. Which, nobody better to skin a bear with than a taxidermist, where I was
That's what I was going to say is, yeah.
You want to cut it like this? And they'd be like, oh, thank you. That was super nice. Anyway, I got a good friend out of it in him, and I got an experience I'll never forget. So much time out in the woods. I fell in love with just the Ozarks as a whole, and Mark Twain as a place anybody can go, and just, if you want some silence, you want some rejuvenation in nature, like that's an amazing resource we have here at our fingertips that I think gets too overlooked for what it is. It's incredible. Just, you mentioned earlier, over 1 million acres of, I think we have 1.3 of Mark Twain National Forest in Missouri. It's an incredible place. And yeah, that was kind of that whole journey. Pretty, it's something I'll never forget.
Yeah, no, congratulations. That's an amazing hunt. And gosh, there's so much for me to unpack there, with that storm rolling in and everything. Man. Really made you work for that one. There was no easy road on that. That's an incredible one. And, that's kind of one of the things about having a more restricted season, kind of like it is that it makes the hunt itself so much more sacred when access is limited.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's so special, and man, I'm truly jealous
for deer. If you got the opportunity every year, you're not going to. That's something about it too. The rarity makes it special, and that lends itself to an extra gear of effort that, I told my wife, I was like, I might not draw this again. So I'm going to treat it like it's once in a lifetime. And, she was like, go for it. But we had a newborn then, he's a year old now, but I was like, are you serious? And she was like, yeah, go for it. And, I had a 6-year-old and a newborn. It was like, it's crazy. But I was in the woods, like I said, 18 nights total. That's a ton for her to take on. And it's just, I don't treat any other hunting season that way. Yeah. So I agree with you, Rashad. That's a big part of it.
It's so important to have a supportive partner like that. If you're passionate about hunting like we are, it's it's a lot, I mean, for me, just even this past week, I've been up at 4:30 and out the door trying to kill turkeys, and she's like, "You didn't make coffee." I'm like, "I had to go."
Yeah,
So,
it's funny when it's too early for coffee.
yeah, like it's gonna be cold by the time you get up. You're not gonna want it anyways.
Yeah.
Oh man. And so you said your shot was kind of more tucked in on the shoulder like it would be a
Mhm.
deer. Clay Newcomb has famously said the center of the center,
Middle of the middle and forward just a little.
middle of the middle and forward just a little. That's what it is.
Yeah.
But you were kind of tucked up by the shoulder,
Yeah.
and so you were still lungs, heart.
Yep. Here, let me actually grab the bear here. We just got this back not long ago. Got the tan hide. Here's the bear. I didn't even tell you a cool thing about this bear. This bear is, let me turn off the blur here. This bear was a super old sow. I don't know if you can see in the camera. She's pretty red actually in some of this fur, which is kind of cool. Not quite color face, but a little bit of red in the black. But her mouth was so her teeth were so degraded that she had no bottom canines, almost no teeth on the bottom at all.
Wow.
Had the top canines were split and worn down to nothing. There's a cavity I could put my pinky in. Just terrible condition mouth. She had 3 legs. She was missing her back right foot from the ankle down. I didn't even know that until I recovered her because she just walked normal. But 3-legged, so I named her Peggy. She got the peg leg. Yeah, the agents I was talking to said that they had been trapping bears and working on the bear program in Missouri for the last almost 20 years, and said that they think by far this will be the oldest bear on record in Missouri that they've trapped or even seen just based on the condition of her mouth. So we'll find out when the tooth gets dated. I don't have that yet because you do have you got to send that in, but yeah, super old sow. She was about 300 pounds. Yeah, just the exact right bear. The Department of Conservation said this bear was done, producing more cubs. That she was definitely on. The agent I talked to said that he thinks this would have been her last winter anyway, or maybe next to last. And he's like, that's a lot easier way to go down than the way it would have. So he was like, that was a perfect harvest for what MDC wanted people to get.
Well, and that's the best case scenario too. Take an old mature animal off the landscape. It's and if it was a young juvenile and it was your only opportunity, it's like, oh hey, it is what it is.
Yeah. Not saying I sat there and judged it.
Yeah,
for sure.
That is awesome. So